Okay. I'd like to just finish off the mitzvah of Mekha. Truth is, when I was learning Hazor, when I said Shiur Yeshiva, I was so excited. A mitzvah Mekha. I didn't understand what it meant to be a mitzvah. I think I have a better understanding now. I'm not sure that I really understand anything, but whatever. I just wanted to comment on a few lines in the Rambam at the end, where he says, "V'ulam shar haponim shekoini behem hakakos v'losam or adrachim dakikniya kloim ashtar v'chazok." We spoke about that last week. Why King Kesser doesn't seem to be included, or was spoken about before. Hine samchu v'smichu oisom v'ksuvim gam kein. See, here is very interesting. Where are we're talking about a mitzvah in the Torah. So, samchu oisom v'ksuvim in Yirmiyah. Let's see the Gemara Kedusha. The Gemara Kedusha Chavav and Aleph. So we're talking about shtar, not about ubishtar menola. Ilay mishum dichsi v'kosa b'seif v'chosum v'hayed edim v'chulei. But that's what the Gemara quotes, and the Gemara quotes another thing. We'll see what the Ram does in Pirush Mishnayis. Ubechazok menola no machizki omakro v'shab barechem. Aseh tifsh. V'ma tifshetein b'yeshiva. Devei b'shmuel tona v'yarashtem moisom v'yishavtem bo. V'ma yirashtem b'yeshiva. Ram Pirush Mishnayis the Kedushin Perek Aleph Mishnah Hey. V'lamadnu l'kinyan b'shtar mima shekosu v'kosu b'seif v'chosu b'yirmiyah. V'raya kincha b'chazok omu v'yirashtem moisom v'yishavtem bo. V'ma yirashtem oisom b'yeshiva. Why the Rambam uses the pasuk Yirmiyah or whatever, the maknin of the Achlin Torah, that's not my interest now. But you see, there's a possibility we should learn a kinyan from the Novi Yirmiyah. L'cheira, that's very odd, because this is a mitzvah, a minyan of mitzvahs. In Eila mitzvah shei novi washoy lechadish. Lechadish novo. And if it's mechadish, lecheira, is the novi hasheker. So, the Ramban has an answer to this question. He didn't ask it, but in what he says, in the second Shiur, he has an answer. He basically says that in Nevi'im, there are two tafkidim in Nevi'im. Nevi'im are historical chronicles. They chronicle historical facts, the Gzeira of Maisris, or the Gzeiras of Shvus by Shabbos, or other issues which he points out. Okay. Or they can express Kabbalah's Moshe Rabbeinu. And so l'cheira, this pasuk in Yirmiyah is not telling us what the modus of kinyan was in the times of Yirmiyahu, but Yirmiyahu, who was from the Matiki Ashmur, from the Balei Meseres. In fact, he's the Rebbe of Baruch ben Neriah. Baruch ben Neriah, the Rebbe of Ezra Sefer, that's when it changed from Nevi'im to Chachomim. But Yirmiyahu was one of the Nevi'im, the whole Shashalos Nevi'im, or the Matiki Ashmur, and Yirmiyahu is telling us a Kabbalah of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's beautiful. And that's how it has to be, because otherwise you could say, you can either say one of other two other things. You could say that there's not a Kabbalah B'chlal, but it's just a reflection of the same way there might have been different ways of making a kinyan chalipin, the way Darko Shabbat Adam. and there's no din in B'chlal. But if it's a Dafka B'Shir Olam, there's no din in B'chlal, the place to quote this is not in Sefer HaMitzvos, in the midst of Mechel Memka. So, the Ram is learning it's a Pirush Makubal. The only problem with this, and there are a few other cases like this, Ram quotes a in Divrei Yomim, I think in the mitzvah, I don't know if it's in Mishmorei, so on the CSO, in one of the two places, he quotes Psukim Divrei Yomim. The question is, the Rambam in the Hakdama, into Pirush Mishnah, asks, what is the difference between Pirush Makubal and Halacha Mishmai? And he says that Halacha Mishmai is pure, unadulterated Torah Sheba'al Peh. And if there's a reference, in Pasuk, it's only a Smach B'Alma. But the Pirush Makubal, you could have. He says it differently in Cherish Beis, in the HaMitzvos, on the Pirush Mishnayos. In the Pirush Mishnayos, in Akdama, he says that Kilu is a basis in the Ksubim for it. It's not Stam and Asmach Ba'alma. In Cherish Beis, he says Chaschomim find the Yud Gimel Midos Laharis Chochmas HaKosim. Here, L'cheira, it's not do Chochmas HaKosim. You only talk about Chochmas HaKosim. It's a Ventera proper. So the question is, how does it become a Pirush Makubal? According to the Rambam. If you say that in Cherish Beis, he's chayzer from it, and he holds that it really doesn't have to be a basis, but it's just the Chacham Shoy Chochmas HaKosim. So I don't know. I'm not sure if you can even put the Yirmiyah in the category of Chochmas HaKosim. That the Yirmiyah, it's just there's Moshe Rabbeinu Lo. You see, sometimes it says Moshe Rabbeinu Lo. Yecheskel Novi Minayin El Kach Kidlish Mipiish Halacha Mishmai Sinai. The question: what is Halacha Mishmai Sinai, and when do you call it a Pirush Makubal? Then we don't know anything. But whatever it is, it's a Kabbalah over here. So then things become. Once you accept that, the quantum leap over here is to understand how and why it's a Pirush Makubal. But once you accept that those parameters, that it is a Pirush report that I was talking about over here, this could be part of the mitzvah Mechel Memka. We said that all Shrano, as the Ram says in mitzvah Tzadihei, that all Shrano, all dinim are because the Torah, it talks about in Torah Shebiksav, Hov HaKosim Osak Bo. As you look at mitzvah Tzadihei, the way Ram described it, he's not telling you Senarena. He's telling you what the basis of Shrana is. It means when the Torah discusses religious law, there's an implied tzivui that you should act according to the religious law. But it's not a tzivui muchot. There's no explicit tzivui in the Torah at all about it. It's just the Torah told you religious law. And here the Torah told you about religious law, about Mechel Memka. So since the Torah says Simchel Memka Mamisecha, so Mamela, there's a mitzvah in the minyan. And then there's a Chiddush, which we'll see in general is not an isolated phenomenon. And we'll see it in the mitzvah Torah ונטען, and possibly we'll see it in Rudef, and maybe in other things, that even though, this I said once, and I once explained that why the Rambam might disagree with the Ramban, that the Ramban has a mitzvah shocharav about leaving the fourth side when you do a siege, that the enemy can run away. The Ramban has it in Minyan HaMitzvos, mitzvah shochach, and he says, Kashet Tziva Hashem is Moshe. So what I said was the Rambam can only have mitzvahs which are not explicit sivuyim in Torah Shebiksav, if and only it's Torah Shebiksav. Even a Pirush Makubal, even though Pirush Makubal could make a mitzvah, as the Rambam says, but you can't have a sharana based on a Pirush Makubal. It has to have ksuv. So here, what happens is, the Kinyan Kalkoyes is based on a Pirush Makubal. So I'm telling you, the Ram Shita is that you cannot conceive a sharana based on a Pirush Makubal. But once you have a sharana, similarly way the Biskarov, I'm not sure exactly how far it goes. Biskarov suggests, I'm not getting involved in that. In Hilchos Malchos Asus, you can expand the mitzvah with your Gimel Midas. That I'm not getting involved with, but the Ram Shita is, in Sharana, you can expand it through a Pirush Makubal. But you cannot define a Sharana based on a Pirush Makubal. But once you have a Pirush Makubal, once you have a Sharana, which is based on Torah Shebiksav, Simku Memkar Misecha, then you could expand it through the Pirush Makubal. I'm not sure. See, the reference over here that the Ram says, Hismichu or Somchu Oisam Ksuvim, L'chei Ksuvim in Nach is no Ma'ila V'Omered in the making a Pirush Makubal. I'm not sure what he wants by saying the Kappa says Psukim, Ksuvim is the same thing. So what difference does it make? What's he telling us over here? I can understand from a Matika Ashmur point of view, as the Gemara says in Tainus, that Adaf Yud Zayin, Yeches Moshe Rabbeinu Yulo, Yeches Nuzim Benayin, Elakach Kilu Ish Mipiyish, Moshe Rabbeinu, Alochim Meshesina. But it doesn't tell you anything whether it's a Pirush Makubal or whatever. And it's not listed, the Ram doesn't list Alochim Meshesina. In the 30, 31, he says, not sure if it's exhaustive. So I'm not sure what happens over here. What he wants with the Ksuvim. And I assume it's important it's a Pirush Makubal, but I'm not sure exactly how it becomes a Pirush Makubal. Okay? This is all very interesting. But I want to ask, I think, a more fascinating question. If I would ask you, what would you say is the Ikar Mitzvah? So the double portion. The Ikar Mitzvah is the Kinyan Metaltalin. And then you expand it to Kalka, and that's what the Ram says it. And that's what the Ram goes out of his way. I guess that's miyad liyad, even though it's not Mashiach, but it's something which could be miyad liyad, maybe. I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but these are Kinyan Metaltalin. And then the Ram introduced Kalkoyos. Correct? That's exactly what it should be. So, what I would ask you to do is to open up Hilchos Mechira and to see how the Ram organized Hilchos Mechira. And the interesting thing is, you get the impression it's just the opposite. Sefer Kinyan, the mitzvah din mechel memka, din mechel memka. As we said, Minchas Chinuch, he doesn't talk about this explicitly, but if someone is sitting the whole day and working on, he's not doing mitzvahs per se, he's a zoyer or whatever it is. Another guy is Isaac and Mechel Memka the whole day. The guy is Isaac and Mechel Memka the whole day. He does a Kinyan Kesef constantly throughout the day. He has a big Chayil Haba. So we wanted to say that Shrano, there's no Kima Mitzvah. It's just religious law. And that's what the Minchas may be alluding to in Tovkuf Tzadiches. He just now using the word Shrano, and he puts Gerushin in terms of that thing. I'm not sure the Ram would do that. That's not our issue there. But he says, he starts off, then we pointed out that the Ram wants to say that the Din Teira is there's Dalki Kniya and Dvorim are nothing. That is the opening statement against Teisim Bechiris and Teisim Ksuvas, and the Chaznish quotes it all portion of his father. The Gemius Das is the Kinyan, the Dalki Kino is shown the Rat Faket, the Rambam, or the Chefs of the Mitzvah is the Dalki Kniya. And that's the Torah saying, that's the mitzvah, that's the Din Teira. So after he says this, Avo, im nikne hamekach b'yechem me'advorim asher nikne behem, kona lokeach, v'eino tzrichen eiden klau, v'ein echem mehem yochol achzabod. L'cheh, that's the mitzvah of the din mechumemka. And the Ram in general, Tidachom HaKodesh, in the Protei Mitzvahs, mitzvahs which are dinim, he calls them dinim, din mechumemka. Halacha Gimel. Here's where the world explodes. Halacha Gimel. V'ma yikna mekach. Hakalka niknes be'echel mishloish dvorim. Bekesef, or b'shtar, or b'chazor. Continues discussing these dinim in Perek Aleph. Then the whole Perek Beis of Hilchos Mechira. Then Perek Gimel Halacha Aleph. Echod habehemo v'echod shar metaltalin niknin b'moos din teira Rabbi Yechalin's din, which is the pshat v'chisim kumem kama misecha. As we pointed out, that's the pshat in the Gemara that Mashiach foreshes by Teira, because according to Reish Shuta Shamika miyad konu miyad steht in Teira Shuta Shamika. According to the Rambam, the pshat is, since the Torah is not meforish, and it's Stam Kinyan is Mos, as the Talmud of Rashba says at the beginning of Azor. That's what the Rambam learns, Dvar Torah Mos Konis, and Mashiach Meforeshes. Okay? But this is the pshat in the Pasuk, and that's why the Rambam quotes the Pasuk as Simkur over here in the Mitzvah. But in Sefer Mitzvah, in Mishnah Torah, you get the impression that the mitzvah is karka, and then karka, he's mentioning at the tail end, metaltal. Unless you say what I suggested once, to be chiddush, that maybe the Ram Mishnah Torah is interested in Masada Sefer Halachos, and he's not interested in canning the mitzvahs. He's not interested in defining the mitzvahs. So you can't even medayik anything then. But I'm just saying it's very odd to assume there's a complete about face in Mishnah Torah. The Ram has steeras, but this is a steera which is darsheli. You don't understand what's going on. So maybe there's no steera and there's no problem. I'll leave that up to you. That is my closing remarks on mitzvah Reish Mem He. Reish Mem Vav. Ba mitzvah hashesh v'arboim u'musayim. He shetzivonu, and here again tzivonu shiranu. It's a din. In fact, you see it also. In Hilchos Torah ונטען, in the Protei Mitzvos. Mitzvos, Hilchos Torah ונטען, mitzvah seachas, he, v'hi, din, toin, u'moide o kefer. Okay, and it's a shrana, it's a din. V'hu amra yisale al kol dvar pesha asher yoima v'goyme asher yoima kiuzeh. So we'll see exactly what it is. V'lashon mechilta. He who zeh at yoidav mixas. So it means there's a taina and a hidaba mixas. And we learn off the pasuk ki hu zeh al dova al dval kol dval pesha asher yoim akuzeh. So some would have asked me when I was a boch sit the base medrash, a mitzvah from al kol dval pesha asher yoim akuzeh mitzvah tayag. I would have said hayitochen, and you shouldn't claim that since the Ramban knocks out all the mitzvahs from Aforis Nedorim, with all the mitzvah Tumah, he knocks out this mitzvah. It's not true. The Ramban agrees with all these mitzvahs. The Ramban explicitly talks about it in the mitzvah of Shicha, of Shein V'ayin, which he talks about in the mitzvah from a mitzvah of Din Kanani. He's moist of a mitzvah. And he says that dinim are mitzvahs. So Pekitzer, the Torah has psukim, which describes halachic parameters and paradigms. They are mitzvahs in the minyan. In fact, I think I mentioned once, and it has to be looked into. It could be that the way to decide whether mitzvahs are separate mitzvahs in minyan between amal, those which are tzibuyim, and those which are shrano, religious law, might be very different. Because the Ram in general, when he talks to Sefer mitzvahs, he says it's a separate inyan. Okay. Interesting, and then when he's, in fact, I think the first major discussion about the Shurish test, where it's various psukim, whether it's about oilolais or whether shikha, whatever he's talking about there, he says it's inyan echad. If it's inyan echad, it's one mitzvah in the minyan. I'm wondering that in dinim, there might be different parameters to decide that it's different mitzvahs. Because the Ram Kuf Yud Zayin asks why are there four mitzvahs eichin, and he says because even though they have the name eichin, they have different dinim. So since the mitzvahs are the dinim, and if the dinim are shayna, that's me say dinam, so I'm able to different mitzvahs. So here, there's a mitzvah of dinim. I'll call dvar pesha v'goyme asher yoyme ki hu zeh. Now, now, he has next such an innocent line that if you wouldn't have been sensitive, was there, you might have missed the whole thing. What's the Ram say? Ubezeh hadin yikones kol mashu neufel bein, and that's the greatest translation, kol mashu neufel bein b'nei adam min hatviyos sosam al sosam shikones mem hoidos vakfila. So he's adding, this includes everything, all cases you can imagine. So the question, what are we adding over here? Because it's now called the Pesha, Asher Yoim Akuzeh. And without Kuzeh, there's nothing. It's Kaifah Kol is nothing. And Moedim mixes is Chayiv. And he adds it and doesn't quote a pasuk. So I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that the Rambam is referring to Perach Aleph Luchos Toin ונטען Halacha Aleph. Hatoin es chaver v'metaltel v'hoidaloi, or that the mitzvah requires a tvir. Hatoin es chaver v'metaltelin v'hoidaloi b'mixas. Harizeh mishalem ma shehoida boy v'nishba ashar v'natera shenema asher yoyma ki hu zeh. And Ram continues. V'chein im kofa bakol v'oyma lo hedvo me'olam oimi kofa bakol v'lo hedvo me'olam. The Ram is assuming that the Toyin es Chavero goes on this also. Ein Echad is a Chal Hashem only when there's a Tfir. The mitzvah is the HaMitzvos from Toyin. Toyin, that's what he even says. Din Toyin. Umoide v'kofar. V'chein im kofa bakol v'oimer lo hoide v'olam v'ein echod meid shu chayev loy harei ze nishma min haTorah. But this is not mefurish in Torah Shebiksav. It's not the kiyuzeh. It says v'chein lomdu mipi hashmur she'ein echod l'chol ovoid or l'chol chatos eino kom avokom hu l'shvur. Pirush Makuv Pipi Hashmur in the Rambam is quoting the Lashon the Gemara Nechnokin where they say kach shamati or kach dio beinai. Okay, so but this is mipi hashmur. This is a pirush makubal. So it means that the moed b'mixas is in Torah Shebiksav, and the Eid Echad with the Tfiyah is a pirush makubal. L'cheira. Go back to this again. So, when the Rambam, if you call in Toin ונטען, mitzaseh achas v'hi din toyin umoide or kefer. So I'm not sure. Would one have said that the mitzvah includes the case of kefer? Because moide or kefer means they're two opposites. It's not that he was moide b'mixas and kefer mixas. The first case he was moide b'mixas or whatever, and the second case he was kefer kol. L'cheira. So if it's the kefer kol, where's the mitzvah? So maybe he's referring to the case which he says right afterwards of Eid Echad, and he's kefer, and the Eid Echad is Bal Sayod, and there he's that's mipi hashmur, and that's what we're talking about. I wouldn't want to, but I'm not sure. I can go either way. If you look in Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, but it's just we can go either way. But there's no necessity to say it because if you look in Halacha Beis, he says v'chein kofa, right? In kofa bakol v'yoma lo yedvo me'olam v'eid echad meid shehoyu harei ze nishba min haTorah v'shmo lamdu eid echad komu l'shvur. Then he says in Halacha Beis, ein lecho mechuyev shvur min haTorah chutz mishleisha. Mi shehoidem mixes the metalton, umi shechivoy eid echod, vashoyme. Shaynemo b'shoyme shvuas Hashem tiye ben shneim. V'abiyana shvuas Hashoymim b'ilchus schilas. V'oecho b'shlashton nishba v'nifta milishalit. So you have to ask yourself a question. What is the Ram trying to tell you over here? That what in Shavuos Hashoymim, there's besides the mitzvah of Shomachinum and Shomasocha and Shoel, there's also the mitzvah of Toim ונטען, or there happens to be Shavuos, it's the case of Shavuos, but the mitzvah of Shoymim is under Shoymim. So I'm not sure exactly because in Halacha Aleph is very much talking about the Toim ונטען, limits it to Moeder Mixas and Edom Messiah. Okay? So those are your options. But whatever it is, the Prate Mitzvahs are very interesting. Because it could be that he's referring to the second case, the case of Eid. But I ask you, Rabbi Isai, what would have been if there hadn't been a pasuk Asher Yoyma Ki Hu Zeh, and we would have had a Pirush Mekubal that Echad Eino Kom, the Cholom L'Cholatas Eino Kom, or Kom U'Yid Shmur? Would there have been a mitzvah? So the answer is absolutely not, because the Shrana, there's no Sivui, and Shrana is the pure on the Torah the Torah Shebeksav. I think I'm not mistaken. You'll find it again, maybe in Kovches, at the end of somewhere in the Mitzvah, he goes throughout, he says that it's in Torah Shebeksav, in the Minyan HaKotze, whatever, but that I think is the Klal Rambam. And that means that Shorish Beis was said in Amar. The Shorish Beis says either Pirush Mekubal or Torah Shebeksav, but when it comes to Shrana, it's Torah Shebeksav. But as you recall, I said that if you have a Shrana, you can expand the Shrana through a Pirush Mekubal. And that's exactly what the Rambam's doing over here. That's what he quotes the pasuk, and then he makes a statement without anything to back up. This doesn't need a pasuk because he doesn't have a pasuk. And it's just an extension with the general dinim that you can expand the Shran. It's the way I see things. I can't tell you, I can't take a shvur deraisa on this, but that's the way I see the way the Rambam doing things. Now, I want to just ask a question. I don't know if it should be after here or not here, but I thought it's an interesting question anyway, okay? I was perusing through Toim ונטען, and then I got to the very end. And Perek Tezayin Halacha Yud. Hoyu shloisha noishin mana bi'echod וכופר behen. 3 people lent someone something. Lo yiyeh echod teveya ushnayim me'idin. They should get together, and 2 watch should be teveya, and the other 2 aid them. We should see we meno yachloko. And one to get it out, to split it up. V'al dvorim elu u'kiyetze behen his ya'kosav v'omar midvar tech shekatil. Says that that's interesting. Is there a mitzvah minyan? Mitzvah is called midvar shekatil. The Ram does quote midvar shekatil in various places in Hilchos Sanhedrin, various places in Hilchos Eidos, and here in Toim ונטען. But it's not found in Minyan HaMitzvos. So I saw Biuchaprolau, discusses maybe it's an asmachta. Not sure that the Ram's language would support such an approach. So the question is, what's going on over here? So I have an idea, and maybe I'm just completely off, but I'll suggest it. If you look in Aseh, Reish Pei Aleph. Listen, Reish Pei Aleph. He shehize hashofet shelishmoya divrei echod mibalei adin sheloi b'fnei bal dinoi v'omroi yisal loisisa shem hashov. He's not allowed. The die is not at the tightness of one party without the other party being present. Okay. Then the Ram continues. Ulahazir mizeho inyan bi'atzboy oma mitvar shekatilcho kamo she'izboye b'levi mishpus. So my suggestion in Rambam is that the Ram learned mitvar shekatilcho, and I didn't check all the places. Most of the places he says it's awesome. The Kabul did. There's no kima mitzvah over here. There's no kumvase. It's only the isase. And my suggestion is that the Ram does not count isui aseh. And that would explain the Ram at the end of Hilchos Ishus that it doesn't count adoimi umitzri. He doesn't count chaya agav mizbeach in Hilchos Isui Mizbeach, even though he says the Nisaseh explicitly. He doesn't count Makdish Tmimim Leberek Abayis, which he calls in Hilchos Erechin, doesn't count the Minyan Mitzvahs. Even though the Ramban does count, I'm not sure certainly Chaya, he counts. So the Ram doesn't count. Isui Aseh, the Ramban does. The Ramban only says, according to the Bahag, that you only count Kum Baseh, you don't count Isui Aseh. But he himself counts. He just doesn't count when there's an Isa Aseh and also a Lav. There's no reason to count the Isa Aseh. And if this is all correct, here's another one to join the join this group called Isui Aseh, where there's no Kum Baseh. That's my suggestion. And then the Lashon in Sefer Mitzvos is beautiful. He si asher shel lishma divrei echad b'balei din shel b'fnei bal dinoi or misal lo sisa shem hashov b'chule ulahazhir mizeh or inyan ba'atzmoi oma mitvar shekatilcho. I don't know why it's important to say it's the same inyan that we'll have to take when we do this law, because it's the same. It couldn't have been a separate mitzvah anyway, because I'm saying it's only this Aseh. So, why is I'm working so hard? But that's not my issue now. Okay? Onwards. Now, interesting. Ram has about 20 mitzvahs of Shrana, which are dinim, at the end of the Ramach mitzvahs, I say. And the last one is also a Shrana. The ones before Shrana, we had the Shrana of Toiv and Nittan and Mechomemka. You go back, Mamish, one after the next, after the next, after the next, okay? Here, he goes out of his way. There's a mitzvah of Rudef, and it's not a shrine, it's an amal. You look in the Arabic, in the original, it's al-amal, the amal. It's a clear tzibui muchlat. So I'm not sure if it's a kasha. I think I have something to say about it, but just to point out, like in the middle of nowhere, he throws in a amal here. This is a bona fide tzibur. So I would say that the killing of the Rudef is a kiyum mitzvah. someone who has the same mitzvahs and who killed the Rudef, and without killing it, he killed the Rudef. No, it didn't. He saved himself. We'll see exactly the mitzvah, saving a life, whatever it is. But it's an amam. It's a tzivui muchla. But you look over here, he says the mitzvah is lahatzil. Hanirdof miyat harodev, amad harodev l'holgoy, va'afilu b'nefesh harodev. So it means the mitzvah is also even if he doesn't kill him. Okay? If he doesn't kill him. But if the only way to do it is killing him and he kills him, that's the mitzvah, correct? Now, Klema, Shona Mitzuvim La'al Galeidev. And here again, Mamurin is Sibuyim, it's a bona fide Sibuy. In the Rambam in the Ksaviyat, the Judeo-Arabic. Okay? So he says, Kloima, Shalom Mitzvah La'al Galeidev, Im Lo Yinucha Lahatzil Anirdof El B'nefesh Harodev. If it's the F Shel Hatzil, Mechem Evarov, yeah, I got to kill him. So you have to kill him. We'll come back to this. This is an amazing thing because the Ram quotes this by Boishes. And we'll find another problem that the Ram is quoting the Pasuk the Gemara. The Gemara says Hediyayin Gimel quotes Namarasa, a Moshiach law. We have to understand what's happening over here. Okay. Just want to read through, just get a general idea, and then we'll go and see more. Rosh Sifri, b'mavushov, mabavushov miyuchod, sheish bo sakonis lefoshes, v'hu b'vakatzoises kapo, you should cut her hand off. And it means literally. Correct? Literally. Kach, kol dovo, sheish bo sakonis lefoshes, harihu b'katzoises kapo. V'katzoises kapo melamed she'ato chayiv latzilo b'kapo. V'inayin she'me'era teyoch latzilo b'kapo. She'ato chayiv latzilo b'nafsho. Talmud loimo lo'choschos eineh. And he's boy l'choin yinat sivui. Okay, shomu eishes ha'echod omnom tov diba v'hoive v'akavoni hi lahatzil anirdof ve'evov shaloiv. Ve'im Yev shalat siloi. Imamisas harodev, but pamachas is a very poor translation. Probably is much better what Kapach did over here. Legamre. I don't know what it means. That's also a little difficult. It says Kimamisas harodev legamre. I don't know. He's either dead or he's alive. I don't know what legamre means exactly. But Yahal maybe it's an Arabic beat, expression, which it doesn't translate well to Hebrew. That's why he said Pamach. I don't know what it means. Okay. Now, my point is the following. And I never had thought about it before. And I'm afraid to say it. Someone's coming to cut somebody else's ava off. And it's though a portion it will borrow that it's not called by Sakonas Nefoshes. I'm not getting involved with Rabbeinu Tam, with the Rab Chaim, with Sakonas Eva. But let's assume not like Rab Chaim, not Rabbeinu Tam, not this business. There's no Sakonas Nefoshes. So someone's coming to cut off someone's Eva. So that can I come and cut off his Eva in order to save the other person's Ava. So I can tell you one thing. It's nothing to do with the mitzvah Rodef. The mitzvah Rodef, Dr. Ram brings the Sifri. The mitzvah Rodef is Ava Sheish by Sakonis Nefoshes. That's Mavusha. But the mitzvah is the Chatchila to Lahatzumechamev. If it's impossible, then you kill. But if a person's coming, it's an amazing thing. I don't know. I want to be passing this halacha. Person's coming upon someone's Ava. I would say certainly there's no mitzvah. Okay. And I would ask them where the het is from. Okay. It is true that you can have a hete of Rodef without the mitzvah Rodef. Okay. We said this, we'll see. We said this in וממכר, because וממכר might be only a shrana. Okay. It might not be a mitzvah over there. It's only a hete. There's no chiyuv to kill the וממכר. And we'll see in Chaim, in Mitzvah in Pogotzech, Shmiras and Nefesh, there are cases there might be a din of the Rodef, as opposed to chiyuv of the Rodef, whatever it is. But I'm just not sure. I don't know there's such a thing where it's not kol sakonis nefoshes, whether the din of Rodef was ever said. That's all I want to say. It sounds, when I first thought of it, I thought it was out of my mind, but I was trying to prove myself wrong, and I have no clue of how to do it. Okay, now, so this is the outline of what we have over here. But now we understand what the Torah meant in Mabusha. It's only an Eva Ma Mabusha miyuchad sheish by sakonis nefoshes. I'm not sure how the Tam will interpret this, because every Eva is yesh by sakonis nefoshes. It wouldn't make a difference. But this is l'chayr the pshat the Sifri, that the whole din of a katzoises kapo is only in sakonis nefoshes. I will admit that anyone who would be pasking halachas and you would ask them, they would say in flug, they would say, certainly, prima facie, no problem, whatever it is, but I challenge them for a source. Okay, next. So that I think we understand the words, whether I'm stressing this. He quotes a Sifri, Mavusha miyuchad sheish b'sakonis nefoshes. V'hari b'kasos kapo, kach kol dovo sheish b'sakonis nefoshes, v'hari b'kasos kapo. But if it's a b'sakonis no b'kasos, that's certainly. There's no mitzvah. The question is, what's the heta? Okay. Now, let's continue. So the question is, just before we start, the mitzvah is a mitzvah about solo, or there's aveira involved in the Rodef, and there might be some element of einish. And Louis Yitzur, you can find the Rodef who's not an avarian, maybe there'd be no mitzvah. That's the question. So what I'd like to present to you, derech agav, before we go on, just want to tell you that I did my homework, okay? I did my homework, and the Rambam Mishnah Torah is also the same thing about Mavushav Eva Sheish Basakon. The Rambam Perek Aleph Vuchos Veitzeich U'Shmiras HaNefesh Echa Mavushav Halaches Echa Mavushav V'Echa Kol Dover Sheish Basakon is the Foshes Echa Roish Sheochas is Aisha the Inyan Akosov Shekol Shechoishe V'Akis Chaveo Hakoya Remisa Oisa Matzil Es Hanildov B'Kapo Shaloide Amemisa Sagov Sheish Basakon is the Foshes. But Sakonis Eber, without Sakonis the portion, we know absolutely nothing. Also Mishnah Torah. So comes out, what's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is the katzoises kapo hatzola bechem evolo. Right? Or the mitzvah lechatchilu is formulated, but katzoises kapo is a case where the sakonis nefoshes and hatzola bechem evolo but katzoises kapo. Okay. I only ask, and if it's impossible, any yochel atzil mechem evor. So let's see the Rambam again. Minayin she'im ein ato yochel hatzilu b'chapo sha'ato chayiv lahatzilu b'nafsho Talmud loimo leisochus einecho. This is amazing because leisochus einecho is a chalav, and it's an amazing thing that you have an aseh b'katzos kapo, and what it ends up doing is it extends b'katzos kapo in a situation that the mitzvah lahatzil rודף b'nafsho sal nirdof, lahatzil nafsho nirdof b'nefesh rודף. It's an amazing thing that a lav come. That's the Matikei Shmur did over here. I don't know if they can do. We could do such a thing. When the Matikei Shmur said minayin, and the Ram learned that it's not stam a din, but this goes in to the mitzvah of rודף. It's an amazing thing that he did here. It's like hidden between the lines. The two amazing things that I want to just bang because I wouldn't. I don't think you might not have noticed them. The fact that the whole mitzvah over here is dafka in a case of sakonis eva, and if there would be no sakonis nefoshes, that eva sheyesh ba sakonis nefoshes, and secondly, that the Torah, the mitzvah of rודף, was only formulated lechatchila in the case of yochel atzil mechem evara v'katzos kapo. And the chiddush is, if it's impossible, and then you should go even further. And that expands the mitzvah itself. It's not stam, because the Ram says, the mitzvah is, he should have lahatzel nilav miad ha'rודף lahogoi va'afilu b'nefesh ha'rודף, or that's the mitzvah. He says it again and again. V'im yafshu latziloi ki memisa rודף v'pam achas legam v'yalgeu. This is the mitzvah. Two amazing things. Because I already told you, the mitzvah we learn out of so because you say, it's already, it's time to move on to a different abode. But the Rambam, that's what he's learning from the Sefer, the Matikei Shmur. Okay, now, next. These are just the simple chidushim, which you don't have to, scrape in to find anything. That's the word say. and you look clearly. Let's go back to the beginning again. He shesivono lahatzil hanildof miaroide laholgo vafilu benefesh aloide kloima shermitzu laharoide im leisuch im lo nucha lahatzil hanildof el benefesh aloide vu amo yisale bekatsosa es kapo. I would have stopped there. Leisochas eincha. Why does he add that? Because without that, you don't know nefesh aloide, and that comes and reinterprets what the mitzvah is. That's why he quotes at the beginning. It's valid. Next. Here, now, let's now just, I'm not going to go into anything, but the Gemara said Hedron, Ayin Gimel and Aleph, the Gemara clearly says you learn out from Na'amarasa. The Ram Pirush Mishnayis and Hedron Perches Mishnah Zayin. Kol Chayve Mikrisis, V'Chayve Mises Bezdin, Min Arayis, Matzilin, Oisam Benafshon, V'Hiske Shloshto, Shloishes Eile Bovat, Vishamokosh, Numimeno Boro, Yoisam Benashal. Then I'll ask you other questions. Okay. The Gemara, V'Katzoises Kapo, Ram Pirush Mishnayis. Ram Pirush Mishnayis says that if someone is going to interpret the Katzoises Kapo literally, and Novi comes and says it should be interpreted literally, the Ram says in Nakdom to Pirush Mishnayis the Chanovi Hashet. The Gemara in Baba Kama Chavov, it seems to say that Bekatzoises Kapo, that over Yiddish in Nafshe is Mammon. Is because it's called Mammon, the EF Shel Hatzila, he can't be Matzo, with the thing. So then there's no Mammon. And that's a Rai over Yiddish in Nafshe. That's the Gemara discusses back and forth. Okay? So you see, the Gemara is not interpreting Katzoises Kapo like this. And the Ram himself, both in Pirush Mishnayis, in two places, Nagdom, and in Perik Aleph, Hilchos Chovel Mazik, he says the Katzoises Kapo is Mammon, and Kach Dono Kol Bezdin me Moshe Rabbeinu, me Yoshua. The question is, what is all this? That's question number 2. Okay. Question number 3. The Rambam makes a big deal in Mishnah Torah. Vafilu Rudef Kot. What's Vafilu Rudef Kot? What does the Ramban mean in Shurish Beis when he learns that the Arigas Rudef Kal B'Choyma, and the Gemara asks, what does it mean exactly? Does it mean that Arigas Rudef is an Oynish? Look at the mitzvahs, Loisaseh, Reish Sadi Beis, and Reish Sadi Gimel. Look at the juxtaposition and see what he's trying to say. The question is, what is the difference between the Tinoik when the Ram says Kachi Tivu Shel Olam or whatever? So Ram talks, if you look in his Lashon Zomamoy, and also the idea of Machshavas Rode, you get the impression of Mais Havera. So what's going on in Cotton, and what's the issue in Tina? Mitzvah Shem will pick up next week. We'll have to decide when the Shiur is going to be next week, because it will not be next Monday night.